Hi, this is John Delancey, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Listen on. This is the truth of it. Fighting leads to killing, and killing gets to warring, and that was damn near the death of us all. Look at us now, busted up and everyone talking about hard rain. But we've learned, by the dust of them all, Bartertown's learned. Now when men get to fighting, it happens here, and it finishes here. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. And right now, I've got 2 men. 2 men with a gut full of fear. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Today on Weekend at the Movies, what's next in the world of the X-Men, a whole slew of trailer talk, and we conclude our trip through the old Mad Max films with our look at Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. All that and more coming up on Weekend at the Movies. That's right, it's another episode of Weekend at the Movies, and I am one of your hosts, Kevin Optimus Solo, and with me, as has been recently, is the one, the only, Hard Candy Mandy, Amanda. Hello.
How you doing?
How has your week been going?
Too fast.
Too furious?
A little bit.
Any details on that, or just too fast?
School done, over with, finally. No more.
Milestone, done with school for no more classrooms forever.
Forever.
And ever.
And ever.
Anything else happened this week for you?
Our anniversary just happened.
What?
Today. Just got back from the medieval times.
And half the people listening have no clue what we're talking about.
Medieval times is the most magical experience into the past that you will never forget.
Knights jousting and sword fights and falcons and horses and
fabulous hair.
And fabulous long hair and food that you eat with your bare hands, no utensils. So definitely a cool trip into the past, fun way to celebrate the anniversary. And it's still our anniversary, and we are showing our dedication by recording this episode in the wee hours as our anniversary disappears here in the next 30 minutes. So that's some dedication for you. As we do every week, we'll start looking at the box office from last weekend and kind of looking ahead to tomorrow and the weekend ahead. Obviously, last weekend, like we predicted, Avengers Age of Ultron still reigns supreme, bringing in $77 million more. Most movies would kill for that on their opening weekend, but Avengers does it in their second weekend, which brings their total up to $313 million, which actually leaves it just short of passing Furious 7 for the number 1 spot. So one more weekend in Avengers Age of Ultron will be number 1 for the year, as everybody predicted early on. Maybe somewhat of a surprise, though. In second place, Hot Pursuit.
Killing it
with 13 million. 13 million idiots went and saw Hot Pursuit. And it came in at number 2. The Age of Adeline stayed at the number 3 spot. Furious 7 dropped from 2 to 4. And Paul Blart Mall Cop comes in at number 5. Any surprise that Hot Pursuit was able to come in at number 2?
I thought that looked funny.
Don't say that out loud.
I thought it looked funny. I will eventually see this.
I thought we already got that movie last year with Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock?
No, that was The Heat. That was several years ago.
The Heat, and now Hot Pursuit is different than The Heat because there's no pursuit afterwards, and it's Reese Witherspoon instead of Sandra Bullock, and Sofia Vergara instead of Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm guessing. But I thought The Heat was hilarious. I can watch that over and over again. Cracks me up. Are you or are you not a knock?
Alrighty then. So we're going to not let Amanda talk anymore for a couple minutes. And obviously looking ahead till tomorrow and the weekend, the big release would be Mad Max Fury Road. So the question then, Amanda, is Avengers still number one for the third week in a row, or does Mad Max somehow overtake it?
I just feel like there's so much hype about Mad Max. I can see it swooping in and knocking it down a notch.
I think there is a lot of hype, but I'm not sure if that's just because of the circles that we run around in, both in the physical world and in the world of the interwebs.
The interwebs. Would you love my word?
But I'm not sure if does Mad Max really have the global or the widespread appeal to everybody. It seems like it's somewhat more, I don't know, more niche maybe, or I don't know. I don't know if we're overselling the appeal for that. I'm hoping not, but I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see which one of those two comes in number one. Because even if Avengers drops by like 50% or something like that, they're still going to be at $35 million. That's a pretty healthy opening for Mad Max to beat that. So.
And I can see people still dragging their kids to this, Age of Ultron, and where you can't really take the fam to Mad Max.
I wouldn't think so, but the gauntlet definitely is being thrown down for Avengers to have to really kind of put some muscle up to stay number one too long, because we got Mad Max this week, we got Tomorrowland the next week, so it's going to definitely take some shots at Avengers and see if it can knock it down, all of which should solidify my predictions at the beginning of the year that Star Wars does overtake Avengers Age of Ultron as the number one film of the year, because it's not going to have any competition like Avengers is. So that's my hopes. Anyways, any other thoughts on the box office from this week or looking ahead to this weekend? Is Pitch Perfect 2, where's it going to come in?
Pitch Perfect 2?
Where is Pitch Perfect 2 going to land?
I don't even want to know. Do you remember my face while watching the first Pitch
It was
Perfect?
very appalling because it's such a great film. My prediction is Pitch Perfect 2 comes in third.
Can we at least hope it beats out Paul Blart?
Can we at least hope it beats out Hot Pursuit?
Oh, good lord.
So I'm going Avengers. I'm going to go Mad Max number 1, Avengers number 2, Pitch Perfect number 3. We'll see. All right, so we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out in the coming days, but let's get into our news real quickly because we have a lot of trailers to talk about and a lot of movies to talk about. So let's get the news out of the way first. Starting with, remember, there's 2 requirements here at Weekend at the Movies. Number 1, we have to talk about Star Wars. Number 2, we have to talk about comic book stuff. So we are getting the comic books out of the way right now with an article entitled Josh Boone to direct X-Men spinoff The New Mutants. And my only reaction to this and everything else that's coming out about DC, Marvel, and all the other different things is I'm starting to feel the need for a tour guide or one of those books for dummies to try to navigate my way through what's going on in the world of superheroes.
MCU for dummies?
MCU for dummies, DC for dummies, just comic books for dummies. I need comic book for dummies, or I need someone that's like a tour guide that's going to like give me a rundown every week of what actually happened, because it's spilling over into TV series, it's spilling over into Netflix. It's not just the MCU and DC, it's X-Men, it's Spider-Man, I can't keep track of what's going on.
I feel like that should be DJ Valentine.
DJ Valentine, where are you? I need you once a week to give me a rundown of what happened in the week of the superheroes for that week, because I don't even know. I've never even heard of the New Mutants because I'm comic book ignorant.
But I guarantee DJ Valentine will be super excited.
He will be super excited, and I need some of that super excitement to get me super excited about this because I don't know anything about the New Mutants. Apparently some type of spin-off movie that Marvel is going to do with the whole X-Men universe. So it's a new part of the X-Men universe, and there's all kinds of characters that are included in this New Mutants. I guess most notably would be Deadpool, which we already know is getting his own movie. So then that's somehow going to tie into this, which could also involve Gambit or all kinds of other people. So I'm very confused. I don't know what's what, and I need help.
You do need help.
I do need help.
I'm pretty sure Channing Tatum as Gambit is getting his own spin-off film. I don't know if this will be directly related to the New Mutants because Gambit was one of the original.
I just hope this isn't. I hope this isn't the same thing that every single entity is trying to do here, because I don't need a Deadpool movie, a Gambit movie, another person movie, and then a collaboration New Mutant movie.
We do.
But I don't need the same formula. I don't need the standalone movie for this character, standalone movie for this character, or team-up movie happening both in Avengers, happening in the New Mutants of X-Men, happening in DC now, happening with the Sinister Six or the Suicide Squad. I got too many team-ups. I can't keep track of who's on what team. I don't even know what's going on anymore. I'm lost. So you're for the New Mutants?
I think it'd be cool. I just really love mutants, and I love X-Men.
She is a mutant, so it's...
I am. I'm a ginger. It's really a mutation.
that is a drastic mutation. And I'm a mutant because I have super hearing.
And super
Sounds
facial
like what?
hair.
And super facial hair right now, yes. Hey, medieval times, I thought I had to be gruff and burly. So that's your comic book news for the day. We'll bookend it with Star Wars later, so I'm getting into some of the other stuff here. In the world of animation, I don't know if you knew this or not, but did you know that there was a Ratchet and Clank animated movie coming?
I did not, no.
All right, so
I didn't know that people cared that much.
Ratchet and Clank, it's the next wave of animation. We're getting into the video games. We had with the success of like Wreck-It Ralph, and now with the Lego movie, people are trying to expand. It's not more just Pixar, DreamWorks, and Disney. So Ratchet and Clank getting some voice casting news, and here's the rundown here. Sylvester Stallone, John Goodman, Rosario Dawson, Paul Giamatti, and Bella Thorne going to be lending voices to Ratchet and Clank, the animated movie, or whatever it is actually going to be called.
It looks like the video game, though. I mean, the animation's pretty close.
So, are you a fan of the Ratchet and Clank games?
Not really. I mean, I played it, but I don't think I finished a game.
Would you watch a Ratchet and Clank movie?
How bored am I?
John Goodman and Rosario Dawson are in it.
More importantly, Paul Giamatti.
Not more importantly, Sylvester Stallone.
No.
I've never played the games, really. I know who the characters are. That's about it. So I can't really get too excited about this. But, I don't know. It's being directed by Kevin Monroe, best known for TMNT. Set to debut next April. So we're getting in next April, and maybe some more people than I will be excited about it. I'm sure a whole generation of people that grew up where Ratchet and Clank was like the Mario or the Zelda of their childhood will be excited for this. I'm just not that demographic. So, but interesting voice cast nonetheless. This one you're probably more interested in, maybe not. It's more your genre, so we'll let you speak on this. But zombie sequel 28 months later in the works. What do you think? Did you like 28 days later and 28 weeks later? And if you like those, are you hoping for both 28 months later and then a couple years from now, 28 years later?
They've taken this long to get to 28 months. I don't know if they'd ever make it to 28 years. But I did enjoy 28 days later and 28 weeks later. That was right when, the zombie movies started popping off. I think it was Dawn of the Dead and things like that coming out around the same time. And I really enjoyed it because there wasn't a ton of zombie movies out then. I mean, like there is now, everything is zombie, zombie, zombie. I think that was more the front runner for all the cool zombie stuff to come out. And I dug it. I mean, it was pretty gritty filming. It wasn't the best looking quality as far as I can remember, like the 28 days later, the first one. But it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. This 28 months later or whatever this is, I'd say I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not gonna jump out of my pants for it.
Jump out of your pants? No, you're not gonna do that for anybody or anything, except for me. Some interesting story along with this, because obviously writer-director from Ex Machina from recent times here, Alex Garland, was the main guy behind 28 Days Later, and he's talking about how basically they couldn't go forward on this because the rights were shared by about 4 different people. So you had Danny Boyle, Andrew McDonald, Alex Garland, and then Fox. So nobody could really do much without the other people. So apparently Garland had an idea for 28 months later, and one of the other guys decided to run with it because Garland didn't really want to have anything to do with it as far as the work part of it. He was just kind of giving ideas out there. So we'll have to see what happens with that, and see what fans of this genre or fans of the other two movies think. But you're for it?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up from Amanda. All right. I can't comment because I've never seen any of those films. Going into a genre that I actually do like, though, we'll talk about a couple different sci-fi things.
Oh, this is all you.
A couple different sci-fi things in the works that some people might be interested in. We're not going to go in depth about them because we don't really know much. Just going to give you who's kind of working on it and a little bit of the premise. First one would be from the director of Lucy from 2014, Luc Besson, going back to a sci-fi project, and this one is called Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets, based on a French graphic novel series. The story follows a pair of time and space traveling agents who work together to protect Earth in the 28th century from a host of villains, and it's already got a couple of people lined up here. Dane DeHaan and Cara Delevingne.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know her, but I know Dane DeHaan. I don't know. I didn't see Lucy. You saw Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
So did you like what Luc Besson did with Lucy?
Yes and no. I enjoyed myself until maybe the end.
Okay. But do you think...
But I think that it was visually pretty cool.
So maybe if he's doing something a little bit more otherworldly in outer space, he might be able to visually stimulate you?
If he... Yes.
Going back to that out of the pants thing.
I think this seems like something on a more grand scale. The whole space opera feel
The
is
title.
Gonna be
Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. That's pretty grand. I'm with you.
I just feel like it's a big scale.
It's a big scale.
So he can do a lot with it. Go for it.
All right, so if people like Lucy or like sci-fi, maybe that's one to interest you. If not, we got another one for you because there's another sci-fi film coming out called Colossal, which apparently is going to have Anne Hathaway lined up with it. Now, this one is coming from director Nacho Vigalondo. Nacho Vigalondo, and in this one, this is seems a little bit more of a different ilk than the one we just talked about. The other one's very grand, seems like almost like a space opera type thing.
Nacho,
This one doesn't sound like that at all. Anne Hathaway will play Gloria, a newly divorced woman who moves back to her hometown after losing her job in New York when news breaks that a giant lizard is on the rampage in Tokyo. Gloria becomes aware that her mind is strangely connected to the carnage in Japan.
Is this Pacific Rim meets Godzilla?
I don't know. It sounds somewhat like that.
Just based
But I
on
think
the fact
Anne
that there's
Hathaway
lizards?
is playing the part of Scarlett Johansson, where she does the lullaby to Hulk. Like, Anne Hathaway is going to try to do the lullaby to a giant lizard in Tokyo.
With no singing.
With no singing. Well, I don't know. It's Anne Hathaway. We might get singing. We might get singing in a spacesuit with a lizard dancing.
So her mind is connected to Godzilla.
It just says connected to the carnage in Tokyo. But I'm guessing yes. She has a mind meld. Spock has been involved. There's a mind meld between Anne Hathaway and a combination of Godzilla, Mothra, King Kong, or whatever the heck this giant lizard thing is.
Is this a metaphor for menopause?
I hope not. And on that note, we got to go on to something completely different. So let's go back to the animated world, and I know a lot of people will be excited about this, and we kind of already somewhat knew this was happening, but Brad Bird has confirmed that Incredibles 2 is his next project. Obviously, Brad Bird was the one behind the original Incredibles, and he currently is dealing with Tomorrowland, which is coming out here in a little less than 2 weeks. And after that, it seems like his next task will be doing Incredibles 2. Amanda, how did you like Incredibles 1?
I liked it, Kevin. It was pretty good.
Did you like it or did you love it?
It was close to being lerved, definitely.
That's a lot. That's grand.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm freaking out as much as everybody else was, but I think even like the little Jack short was really good, and I liked it. It was really entertaining.
Well, he's had a bunch of ideas apparently that he didn't get to use on the first Incredibles, so obviously he has material already kind of running around in his mind. Another interesting little tidbit from the article was the talk about his connections possibly with the Star Wars universe, and that he's actually had discussions with Kathleen Kennedy, and apparently he's not necessarily making that a priority or anything like that, but it doesn't seem like he's shooting down the possibility of something possibly in the future between him and one of the Star Wars films, which would be probably a very good thing for a lot of people that are huge on Brad Bird. I'm not as huge as everybody else, but I could dig him being in the Star Wars universe, but it seems like that would be years down the road. But a little interesting tidbit at the end of that article. All right, we said we'd bookend it with the Star Wars news. I know this is a little bit older, a little bit further off, so it's not like brand new news, but we didn't get to speak about it on our last episode, so I have to talk about it. We've already kind of rumored what some of the standalone Star Wars films would be. We had it as one of our questions one week as to which characters you'd like it to focus on, and we already kind of know what the first standalone film is at least titled, and it looks like the second standalone film will be all about Boba Fett, and I think that's everybody's number one character that they wanted it to be about. So Boba Fett, the second standalone Star Wars film. I know you probably don't care much about that, or do you?
I do. I thought it's much deserved. There's a lot of hype around Boba Fett. I think he is a badass.
And he deserved more than he got in the original trilogy, so we got to see more than just him standing on the side and then getting eaten by a Sarlacc, so
whatever that means.
Yes. Other news that we won't really get into because everybody's already beat it to death, but obviously the news is rampant about Asa Butterfield being cast as Spider-Man.
Which I'm not really keen on.
Okay. Not a fan?
Well, I saw him in Ender's Game.
Yeah.
And I saw him in Hugo.
Okay.
And I just can't see him as Spider-Man.
And I've seen neither of those movies, so I'm completely oblivious to who even this kid is. I've heard his name a million times this year, but I've still yet to even look to see what he looks like. So, whatever. Is he, in your mind, could he be better than Tobey Maguire at least?
No.
No? I mean, he's not going to be better than Andrew Garfield.
I just see him as, yeah, exactly. I just see him as a very young kid, and I can't see him stepping it up and, ramping up that sarcastic humor and...
Yeah. I think a lot of people had other people that they would have put ahead of him, but it seems like that, at least for now, is the name that everyone's saying is basically all but cast in that role. Also, in news I just saw here as we were getting ready for the record that apparently Sam Jackson is connected to a Blob remake.
What?
Remake of the Blob. Sam Jackson involved. I don't know. We'll have to wait and get more details for our next show or something, but just read that as we were getting ready to record.
Is Killer Tomatoes next? Come on now.
That is showing your age compared to mine. Sorry. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, the cartoon from the 90s? Oh. You youngsters. All right. Moving on from the news and getting into trailer talk, because good God almighty was there a bunch of trailers this last week. I want to say that there was probably 20 to 25 trailers that happened over the last week. Some of them very, like the very first trailer, some of them a second or third follow-up trailer, but there was a bunch of them. We're not going to talk about all of them because we would be here all day, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about as far as what we've been watching in our main attraction with Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. But their links will all be up on the website. We're just going to kind of touch on a few of them, so we'll just go back and forth until we have nothing we want to talk about. So, Amanda, you're up first. What was one of the trailers that you wanted to talk about either for good or bad reasons?
Crimson Peak!
Crimson Peak.
So excited. Get it, Guillermo.
Guillermo. God, you have to say it for me. What is it?
Guillermo del Toro.
All right, I'll just call him Del Toro. Yeah, I think it's Gizmo. People call him Gizmo.
Gizmo?
Gizmo del Toro and Crimson Peak, and that is completely up your alley.
Dude.
Is that one of your most anticipated films of the year?
I think, especially after, I heard about it, and I was like, oh, stoked. And then actually seeing the trailer, now I'm just pissed that I have to wait.
That's angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Even for someone that's not really keen on that genre, Tom Hiddleston looks crazy good in that.
Yeah.
And I will actually watch that with you.
What?
It's on record. I'll watch that with you.
That's because I busted open the Guillermo del Toro door for you.
She went crazy and bought like 1,000 Del Toro movies, even though he's only had like, I don't know, a dozen. But yeah, I've never been anti Del Toro, so I will definitely give this one a shot. All right, I'm up next then. I should talk about that one because you wouldn't want to, but I am not going to talk about the second Human Centipede trailer.
You tried to get that on me again. Sneaky.
No, I think one that kind of caught my eye at least a little bit in a completely bad way would be the new trailer for Gem and the Holograms.
I saw some shit talking about that on Twitter.
There's
already.
a lot of shit talking going on about that trailer. This is something that if you're a geek and a nerd and a cartoon junkie, I guess like I am, if you're not one, you might not know all the story, but this whole project has had a lot of bad to it. Originally, it was a contest that people at home were supposed to be able to submit videos and basically audition for a role in this film. And it was going to be entirely cast based on this contest and all these auditions that thousands and thousands of people around the internet were sending in, fans of Gem and the Holograms. And then the first time casting news came out on this, there was legit, Hollywood actors that were cast for the roles. So I don't know what that whole thing was about. I don't know if there's anybody that submitted a video to this contest that's actually in this movie or not. But it completely looks like they're trying to make them look like Gem and the Holograms, and then that is the only resemblance that this movie will have to the actual cartoon. There was no look whatsoever. It's Gem and the Holograms were the good characters, and then there was another band called the Misfits that was their rival band, and everything revolved around Gem and the Holograms, that band, doing things right and good, like you're supposed to teach kids about, and then the Misfits, who were breaking all the rules and doing everything bad. There was no sign of any Misfits in that trailer whatsoever.
Well, there's actually a band called the Misfits. They're a gruesome metal band. So unless they wanted to get Doyle von Frankenstein to do this, I don't think that was going to happen.
Well, I'm pretty sure they probably still have the trademark of Misfits in the cartoon, so I'm sure they could have used it, but I don't know. I just don't know what this just looks like. It looks like an attempt to capitalize off of the stuff like Glee, stuff like Pitch Perfect, stuff like whatever, but making it a little bit edgier for people. I don't know.
It didn't look edgy at all.
But I mean,
except for that makeup.
trying to I don't know.
They're just trying to do this reboot everything.
But it didn't look like it had anything to do with the cartoon. I don't know how anybody could be excited about this. It just looked bad.
Get over it.
All right, so you're up next. Any other trailers on the list that caught your eye at all?
Magic Mike XXL. Definitely have to watch the first one now because I feel super out of the loop.
As you should be. That seems like a movie that the guys at True Bromance would like to talk about, so maybe you can talk about it with them.
I think they're going to do Best Chest next.
They're running out of body parts to do best lists of, so...
And I think that there can be a lot of chests.
All right, so True Bromance guys, if you need an expert on chests,
about the pecs.
Male chests,
about the pecs.
Hard Candy Mandy is your go-to girl here. So, all right, I'm not talking about Magic Mike XXL. What I will talk about is Manglehorn with Al Pacino. It looked like Al Pacino decided that 2015 would be the year that he decides to try. So we've already had Danny Collins, and it looks like Manglehorn is going to be on par with that. So I'm definitely excited for more on Manglehorn. What about you? Anything else on the list that you wanted to bring up?
Oh, absolutely anything. Absolutely anything Simon Pegg is okay with me, but this movie, absolutely anything, looks awesome.
That was a tongue... I had to wrap my head around that. I was like a delayed reaction trying to catch up with where your brain was going.
You were looking at me weird, and I stopped talking because I didn't know if you were following.
I think there's a lot of Simon Pegg fans out there that like most of his other work, and I would think that this would be something that they would like as well. It seems like right up that alley. It seemed like it had some funny moments. So
it's like the sci-fi Bruce Almighty.
Question for you. Will San Andreas be better than Godzilla last year?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't see Godzilla,
Good.
but I am looking forward to San Andreas. I think it looks pretty insane. As far as like 2012, I feel like that looked pretty realistic to me. And I feel like if you were in the shit, that's what it would be.
Okay.
Okay.
I agree with that. I think San Andreas will be much better, not only because of The Rock, but for many other reasons. Unless every other scene they cut away from the actual earthquake and don't show it ever.
It's not. It's the
San Andreas fault line. I know what you're talking
it's
about.
splitting. It's
I didn't know what else to call it besides an earthquake. Are you a fan of the Vacation series?
I've seen it a billion times because it's always on TV. Or
You've seen the whole
something.
series of movies a billion times, or just which one?
Like National Lampoon's Vacation,
Christmas Vacation,
Christmas,
European
and-
Vacation.
I've seen all of them. Yeah.
Okay, and you like them? They're kind of okay.
Yeah, they're okay. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I have kids one day and be like, you're gonna watch this. This is funny. But
I'm not like a super fan of the Vacation series. I think they are funny, but I think this is a good reboot.
yeah, it looks pretty good.
I think this looks like legit. This
It's
looks like
spoofing on itself.
yeah, but it looks like it'll have enough nods to the old one, but not be stupid. So I think that has a little
It's
bit of
got Chris
potential.
Hemsworth.
It does have Chris Hemsworth, which could be a nominee for your best chest or other body parts if True Bromance decides to try to talk about other things, because he seems like he's trying to show off something south of the border as well in one of those scenes. I'm just saying.
He came in there just to show off his six pack. What are you talking about?
Oh, that's what it was. That's right. Anything else from you on the list?
I can't really see. Hold on.
This makes for good podcasting.
I'm sorry. I told you this is gonna be a problem. Oh, Mr. Holmes.
Yeah?
I don't know if this is coming out at the right time or too long after the big hype about Sherlock Holmes came out,
Right.
but it didn't look too amazing to me.
I thought it looked interesting. I thought it was an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
They are still doing more of the Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. I know that there's a
What?
yeah, there's a third one of those that's on the way. So this is going to kind of be in between that. But I think anybody will tune into Ian McKellen. Be anybody. I mean, I would just listen to him talk, and he could be talking about nothing. But,
Magneto's pretty legit. Just saying.
but it's interesting the way that they're going to kind of do that. It reminds me of a little bit about what they did with Hercules last year, where they kind of unmasked the legend about it, where he's kind of pulling away some of the layers of the legend of Sherlock Holmes, so to speak. People that liked
The
Gone,
embellishments
yeah,
and things like that.
people that like Gone Girl, I'm sure will be going crazy about Return to Sender with Rosamund Pike. That looked creepy as hell. But I know a lot of people will be on board with that. That's fine. There was another trailer for Testament of Youth, a Kit Harington and Haley Atwell war film thing. Another war film with Cuba Gooding Jr. called Freedom, which I'm sorry, I cannot take Cuba Gooding Jr. serious as an actor anymore.
After Jerry Maguire, or what?
I don't know, just in the last 5 to 10 years,
Is it because you hated Pearl Harbor?
I did hate Pearl Harbor, but that's not why. I just don't find him believable anymore. I just don't. I'm sorry. It looked like it was trying to be 12 Years a Slave, like trying to trace a couple different storylines, and I mean, it may be interesting, but I don't think it had enough power to kind of keep my interest.
There was a time where I thought Cuba Gooding Jr. was more legit than Terrence Howard. And now I think that's flopped.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Some other trailers that we're not going to get into the Grizzly Maze, starring James Marsden and Billy Bob Thornton. Youth, starring Michael Caine. That trailer just confused me. The Intern, with Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro.
Oh,
That looked like it could be interesting.
that might give you a little bit of the feels.
The feels. American Heist, starring Hayden Christensen and Adrian Brody. Tell me that's not a team to be reckoned with. And
Get it, son.
and Rick and the Flash, which to me, I'm sorry, Meryl Streep, but are you just literally trying to rip off Al Pacino and Danny Collins?
Dude, right?
That is exactly what that seemed like.
With even worse hair.
Yeah, it was like Danny Collins was literally Al Pacino playing a
Aged
folk
rocker,
singer that
yeah.
was aged. Now Meryl Streep is kind of playing like more of, not like a Neil Diamond folk singer. This is more like Peter, Paul, and Mary type folk singer, but like, or Janis Joplin type singer. that's washed up. I don't know. It seems like way too close of a storyline. So, but all those trailers links will be in our episode post. So let us know which ones you're interested in, which ones you're not. If we're wrong or right with where we're putting our anticipation or our hate for some of these trailers. And if anybody liked Gem and the Holograms trailer, TFG1 Mike, explain to me please why. So that's it for trailers. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to talk about what we've been watching and to get into our main attraction, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Dun dun dun.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Greg.
This is Chuck.
And this is Dan. And we are Talking in Circles. Because the world needs another podcast, we are here as Geekcast Radio's newest edition.
And as the title says, each week we get lost in conversation about a wide range of topics, including movies, comics, games, art, TV, and even occasionally sports.
We play games and discuss pivotal topics like who would win in a fight, the Kool-Aid Man or Tony the Tiger, and examine the hot-button issues of the world of geekdom. We keep things fresh by taking timeless topics in new directions.
We are simply three friends having a fun time talking about life's most fascinating foibles.
Stay connected with us every Tuesday on iTunes or at geekcastradio.com.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk.
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing. Car.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
Now back to the show. Do you see how your patience paid off?
All right, thanks for sticking with us. We got a bunch of movies to talk about because, see, a couple weeks ago, I was spending all my time watching Daredevil, but this week we spent all our time watching movies. So we got 9 movies to talk about. So buckle up, find a comfortable seat or a comfortable set of headphones, and just, get ready for some great movie talk. But we're going to start with the 2 films, because there's always a couple films that Amanda has seen that I haven't. So she's going first with the 2 films that she saw without me. So which one are you starting with?
Let's go with Stonehurst Asylum.
What is Stonehurst Asylum? When is this? What time frame are we talking about? Did this come out like a couple years ago, 10 years ago? Do you even know?
No idea, but it's on Netflix.
Okay, it's
streaming.
on Netflix.
And it has a pretty star-studded cast, which kind of grabbed my attention.
What genre?
It's horror.
Okay.
What I did was just browse for horror, because that's what I like to do. Not horrors, horror.
She was browsing for horrors.
Browsing for horrors. And I found one by the name of Kate Beckinsale, and I cannot spell her last name.
I'm sorry, you found a whore named Kate Beckinsale?
Yes, that's how I segued that. Did you like it?
I like that. So I'm intrigued now. Continue.
It also had Ben Kingsley.
He's not a whore.
He could be.
A male whore?
Yeah.
An old male whore.
That exists.
All right, so we got Kate Beckinsale, Ben Kingsley.
So also got Michael Caine, briefly, and Brendan Gleeson, which could definitely be some kind of deviant in this movie.
But not a whore.
Nah, could be. I don't know. I can't scratch that off.
I'm going to stop the whore talk.
And then that guy that played Remus Lupin in the Harry Potter series.
She's a Harry Potter geek.
Don't know what his real name is, though.
So what did you think of Stonehurst Asylum? What was it about? What's the breakdown here?
The whole, I don't know what you want to call it, the premise is this asylum filled with these aristocrats or these people who are embarrassments to their noble or important families, and it's in England. And it's got this star-studded cast, but most of these people, like Michael Caine and Brendan Gleeson, they have very small parts. They only show up for, brief periods of time, but they still add little snippets, where needed. But the main front runners of the movie are Ben Kingsley, which is the main dude, and Kate Beckinsale. And then there's one other...
Can you say that name again?
No,
you can't spell it or say it.
Beckinsale.
Okay, continue.
chick from Underworld.
Okay. Everyone knows who it is.
Yeah.
We're just making fun of you now.
That's okay. But the whole thing is Brendan Gleeson finds in Kate Beckinsale that hysteria originates in the female anatomy. So they do all these like electroshock therapy and all these older methods of trying to quote-unquote cure people of their madness. But there's a twist involved in that I'll avoid spoilers and not give that away.
Nice. So based on a story by Edgar Allan Poe, directed by Brad Anderson, Stonehurst Asylum is a 2014 thriller with Kate Beckinsale.
There's a G in it, bro.
Beckinsale. Anyways, Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 49%. What do you give it out of 5?
I'd give it a 3.5, solid 4, maybe.
So right in the 7-8 range out of 10. So
it was cool. I'd never seen that story done that way before.
Okay. So some uniqueness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the second film that you saw this week?
The Ward.
The Ward.
Which is also streaming on Netflix.
You're a Netflix whore.
What is your deal?
All right. So what is the breakdown for The Ward? What was it about? What's this? What's the deal here? I've never even heard of this.
Also horror. What is the main chick's name?
It's a John Carpenter film. I don't know who.
It's a chick from that Mandy Lane movie. She was also
Amber Heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Danielle Pennebaker and Mamie Goomer. Mamie Goomer.
What was it?
It's a 2010.
Mamie Goomer.
It's a 2010 thriller psychological horror. Horror
Jesus.
film. Sorry. But continue. It's the young woman is Amber Heard. So.
My notes here.
Yeah.
Just say what?
Yeah, her note is one word, what, with 2 underlines and a question mark.
What?
Explain yourself.
There was a twist in there.
There seems to be a trend here of twists in the horror films.
Normally, I can spot these, but this kind of smacked me upside the back of the head at some point. I didn't realize it was coming until it was too late. I thought it was just pretty straightforward, scary, what's going on, and this also an asylum setup. A couple times, yeah, there's some scariness
couple
going
jump
on.
Scares.
But then you find out what's really going on, and you're like, whoa, it all comes together. So that's definitely a recommendation from me to see The Ward if you like that.
You liked it better than Stonehurst Asylum? It did fairly considerably worse on Rotten Tomatoes. It's at 32%.
I would say I like them about the same, honestly.
So another 3.5?
Yeah.
All right. So anybody that has some more horror films out there, send recommendations to Amanda because she needs some more horror films.
I will watch the crap out of those.
I'm just going to continue to call them horror films for the rest of my days. All right, let's move on to some films that we have both seen. A couple weeks ago, we started the trek through the Fast and the Furious movies, and we talked about the first 3 of them, which I gave the first one a decent score for me, for Fast and Furious. I gave the second one slightly less, and I gave the third one, I don't even know if I gave it a score. I think it was like absence of score. Like it was so bad. Like a 0 or a 1 or something. It was a terrible score for Tokyo Drift. So since then, we've caught up with a few more films. We saw Fast and Furious 4. I'm just going to say Fast and Furious and then number because the naming of these movies makes absolutely no sense. So Fast and Furious 4, and I guess the trendy way to say it is Fast 5 because they couldn't call it Fast and Furious 5.
Is it Fast 5?
Yeah. So I saw the 4th and the 5th installment in this epic franchise. And let me just say that I do appreciate the fact that they have gone back to the original cast. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't a bad idea, and I could have totally seen this working. I know I was complaining about the whole formula of having like individual movies and then teaming them up, but I could have totally seen this series way back when I was in high school or just graduated in high school when these films first came out. I thought that they were going to do that, where they had like a Fast and Furious movie that starred Vin Diesel and whoever, and then they were going to do another Fast and Furious movie and starring completely different people, but it was going to be still cars, still that kind of genre, but each one was going to just be in a different area, different cars, different people. which I could have been fine with.
Like New York, Miami.
Yeah, or even
whatever.
like they did with Tokyo, but better. But you know, find actual people that could carry these films individually. Like if you had one that was all Vin Diesel, you had one that was all Paul Walker, or you had one that was whoever, you know, whatever people you get in there, Statham, or, you know, the people that show up later. And that would have been fine. And then you could have had like a team up or something that crossed over, you know, later on once you get to the, like they do in the 6th, 7th movie or whatever. But they kind of just abandoned that after 3. And we're like, that's just not working, so now we're just going to do the team up from here on out. And I guess that was a good move because 3 didn't work. They didn't have anyone that could actually carry that film. So they've gone back to the, you know, to the trusted true people here. So we got, you know, the reconnection of Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, etc. for both Fast and the Furious 4 and Fast and the Furious 5. And I think they're closer to what we got with the first one. Like, I would still put the second and the third one as the worst 2 that I've seen.
Yeah.
The third one will forever be. I don't think there's anything that's going to top that one as far as the opposite end, the worst. And 2 to me just was a little bit lacking. There were some holes in here. Now 4, of course, we see the idea that they're both going undercover at this point. Vin Diesel and Paul Walker basically convince or get in a position where they're both going to be working undercover to try to infiltrate this, like, you know, another cartel or another group of bad guys, whatever you want to call it. And we have the interesting setup where someone that lives closer to the border is going to have to tell me how that all works, because they had the clever setup of the tunnels through the border. You drive your car through a tunnel and you go from Mexico to the United States.
And you're good. People don't know about these.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't work like that. I don't know. I mean, I think there's some holes in this one here and there, but I thought overall it was decent. You got some dramatics with a major, I'll leave it unnamed, character dying. For those that haven't seen this franchise, which I'm pretty sure I'm the last one, so not trying to spoil it for myself, I guess. But I don't know. I thought it was decent. A decent kind of connection back to the first one. But how do you feel the fourth one stacks up against the other ones?
I think this is the upswing.
Yeah.
On the bell curve or whatever you want to call it that the franchise goes through. I think it starts to solidify again a little bit more.
Well, this is the first one that you really start seeing more than just in passing a connection, a deeper connection with Paul Walker and Vin Diesel, where up to this point it's been more at arm's length type stuff, where he wasn't sure why he let him go, and they had done some stuff that was, you know, helping each other out, but there hadn't been like this completely working together type thing like they do in this one. So I think it really sets up what the tone is for, from what I hear, for episode or movie 4, 5, 6, and 7, where there's this real thematic thing about family and the bonds and the closeness of this entire group. I think that all kind of starts solidifying here in number 4.
I can't see really what transpires between Dom and Letty happening. I'm like, really? But I know that they needed that to happen to fuel a major part of the film and Dom's kind of motivations throughout. But other than that, besides your border control issues,
yeah,
I think it was a pretty solid one.
I mean, obviously there's still a bunch of nonsense as far as physics and stuff that could or could not happen, but you have to suspend all that when you watch these movies, and you can't fault them for that. I've been told that over and over again. So we'll get more into that when we get through this whole series, because I'm going to go on a rant of epic proportions that only certain people in the world are going to appreciate. So I'm going to save that until after we finish movie number 7. But let's move on to Fast 5. This is the one that everybody I have heard a podcast about, from in-session film to film spotting to talking in circles, everybody that's ever talked about these films says Fast 5 is the best of the franchise. It's the number 1 film. It's 5 and then 7 and then 6, or, you know, something like that. But almost all of them put 5 as number 1. Obviously, this is the film where we see the appearance of none other than The Rock, which obviously can only be beneficial to a movie or a franchise because the guy is ridiculously awesome. I don't know, though. I don't think I'm seeing this as my favorite one. I think there's... Thus far. I think there's more holes in this film than there was in the first one or than there was in the fourth one. I just think there's some stuff that's just not believable. And I'm not just talking about the physics part of it. I just think there's a lot. Like, this movie spends way too much time setting up their heist, their mission to get this money from the police station. Like, they are in a foreign country, and we're supposed to believe that the most powerful person in that country, who has the entire police force under his thumb, among everything else, the entire population is scared to betray this guy. They say in the movie that there is a price on these guys' head that is ridiculous, like a ton of money for anybody that finds these guys. Yet they are able to take their sweet-ass time setting up every inch of this thing. And they even go through the whole, it's almost like a delay, like a drawn-out montage where Vin Diesel gets to say, hey, you're up, and this guy goes and does this thing, and hey, you're up, and they get this part of the task done. They have a safe brought in that is bigger... I don't remember what the dimensions of this safe is, but obviously...
It's like 18 by something.
It's a humongous, heavy safe that you can't just order online from some retailer.
You're not getting this from the Finger Hut magazine.
They needed to get a replica of the safe that was in the police station, and somehow they're able to get that in this foreign country delivered to them, and nobody notices. They go out and have street races to get cars so that they can have them for this heist, and nobody turns them in and nobody finds out. Like, I know they kind of try to touch on that by having the whole thing where The Rock shows up and then all the Brazilians, pull out their guns, but that's The Rock aspect of it. What happened to the kingpin here, the drug lord guy? Like, they wouldn't have done that if he would have showed up there. Like, it was very obvious that they were there. They weren't hiding it. They were a very public display of what they were doing. And if The Rock knew, then that guy knew, and he would have showed up, and the Brazilians would not have pulled their guns on him. I don't know. There was just, like, every little part that went up to making this. These guys are supposed to be, like, covertly plotting something, and it's just not believable. And then the whole scene with the safe on the freaking bridge, or whatever you want to call it, being swung back and forth and hitting cars and not having any impact on the cars that are dragging it. I don't know the physics behind cars, but I don't care what kind of engine it is. When that thing is swinging back and forth, you're not going to have control of your car like they do. So I had a lot of problems with Fast 5. I know I'm supposed to suspend all my ideas of realistic things and how physics works and how cars work, even though I don't know much about cars. But even I, as ignorant as I am with cars, know that this stuff is impossible. So I had more problems with 5 than I was expecting to. I would actually put it below number 4 and below number 1. I still think the first one and the fourth one are better than this one. So what about you? Where do you put Fast 5 in the top 5 so far? The first 5.
I say it's probably my second favorite.
What's your first?
The first one.
So you like Fast 5 a little bit better than 4? Just because of The Rock?
Yeah, The Rock puts it over the edge for me.
I can see that, and you get the whole, like you said, the whole fight between Vin Diesel and The Rock, which again, that's unbelievable too, but that was still fun to watch. Vin Diesel would never get the upper hand on The Rock. Blasphemy.
Whatever, bro.
Blasphemy. Anyways, all right, let's get away from the Fast and the Furious franchise and talk about something else. Let's go to, you brought up Del Toro earlier.
We do scores?
Oh, scores. On Furious 4, what do you give it?
2.5.
Right in the middle, and Fast 5.
3.5.
3.5. For Furious 4, I'm going to go with a 3. And for Fast 5, I'll give that one a 2. Maybe 2.5 if I'm feeling generous. Maybe 2.5. All right.
The Rock straight snapped that dude's neck.
He did, and that's another thing that I don't think was believable. Not that The Rock can't snap somebody's neck, but that guy apparently has free reign to do whatever the heck he wants.
It's Brazil. The guy was shooting at him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just saving bullets.
I guess. All right, let's move on to a completely different film. You were talking about Del Toro when we talked about Crimson Peak. We also watched another Del Toro film this week, and that would be Pan's Labyrinth, which I had never seen before.
Which is one of my favorite movies. I used to go to sleep to this movie every night. I know it's super brutal, but it just, the sound of it has such a lullaby feel to it.
I can get that. I can get the sound, and there's definitely some fantasy elements. I feel like I was misled with this film a little bit. I'd never seen this film, actually. Nothing against it, nothing against Del Toro. I just never had sat down to watch it. And even the back of the DVD, of the Blu-ray or the DVD describes it as like fantasy elements on par with like Lord of the Rings or, that type of like just a complete world of fantasy. And I get that does exist, but I was expecting the ratio of fantasy to reality be much more swayed onto the side of the fantasy end. I was expecting over half of the film to be more in this fantasy world. Like I thought the first part, I felt misled because I felt like the first part, okay, we're setting this up like a lot of fantasies do in the real world. We have this child that's being put in this different environment, and they're searching out stuff. Almost a similar setup to like what we had in the Narnia series, where you have, kids going in a different area, a different part of the world, away from their immediate family, and they're exploring the house or they're exploring the grounds, and they find some type of portal or some type of opening to a world of fantasy. Like, they're similar in that respect. And then I thought once that was kind of established, that slowly we'd be transitioned into the rest of the film being all in that fantasy world.
But that's the thing, they blur that line between
right.
the real world and the fantasy world, because you don't know exactly if it's real or if she's making it up until, the end, and you still don't know. Was this all a dream? Did this happen? Was she making it up on the way throughout the story? Or
right. And I'm not saying any of it's bad. I'm just saying that's not the direction I thought we were going. Not saying I didn't like the direction. I just figured we were going to get to see much more of that fantasy world, and I thought we just kind of got the surface of it, and I expected to see way more of it. Not to say that took away from the movie. I just was confused in my head as to where I thought the movie was going to go. The dude was one of the biggest douchebags I've ever seen in a movie.
In the world.
That guy was a bastard. And I wanted to punch him in the face. I wanted The Rock to snap his neck. Mm-hmm. But there was definitely a lot of visual...
Just running in DDT, that dude.
Yeah, just rock bottom that guy. There was a lot of cool visual stuff going on here. A lot of stuff to look at. A lot of fun, kind of just captivating scenes and
the monsters
and
were super cool.
Yeah, that frog thing was weird. And gross, but also very cool. But all of the different creatures that kind of exist were cool. I was really kind of pissed off at that girl, though, at some point.
She makes some stupid decisions.
I hate when kids are portrayed as idiots. I'm sorry, I just do. Like, it's almost like the classic, I know you hate the word, but it's the classic trope where you have, like, the Indiana Jones, the MacGyver, the badass guy who's got like some kid or some lady or whatever that just somehow is with him at that point, and they're like, stay in the car or don't touch this, and they always do it, and I'm like, no, nobody would do that. Like, you're with this badass that's just like done some amazing feat. Whatever he tells you to do, you're going to do. Like, you're fighting Nazis, or you're fighting, like, you're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to stand in this corner because that guy seems to have things under control.
Just like Edward Norton in American History X, when he tells that guy, I'm going to kill you, he's already killed somebody. He's probably going to kill you, too.
Yeah, these guys aren't joking around here. Listen to him. And that girl, like, when you're in a fantasy world and this big old tree-like looking guy says, don't eat the food on the table, I'm going to warn you about this, I'm giving you this task, you're going to be tempted, the whole Adam and Eve type thing, don't eat the fruit. Alright, don't eat the damn fruit, girl. She deserved to die in that scene. I was hoping she was dead.
She got all those cool fairy dudes killed.
Yeah, she got those fairies murdered.
Murderlated.
She deserved to die.
That dude was creepy. Why would you be sticking around? Like,
Spoiler
this
alert.
Is 2 grapes. I'm just gonna stick around and eat 2 grapes when the scary dude is sitting at the end of the table.
Yeah, with eyes in his hands. This stuff, I don't know. This girl is not very bright. If I'm in a world like that I know nothing about, I am following every rule that Tree Dude tells me to do. Like, and the fairies.
Those could have been some Blue Lagoon, go to sleep and never wake up berries. You don't know.
Yeah, obviously there's a dude sitting at the end of the table that looks like he was at one point living that probably could gain life again because he's not decaying. So I'm not going to touch anything near him. In fact, I'm probably just going to get a knife and stab him in the back a couple times real quick just to make sure this dude's dead before I eat the fruit. Anyways, this is one of your favorite films, so I'm guessing you're giving it a pretty high score.
I'm going to give it a 4.5.
4.5? Not a perfect.
No, just because, like, I wanted more fantasy elements like you did.
Yeah.
I want to see more of that world fleshed out a little bit.
And I'll just be slightly below you. I'll give it a 4 out of 5, so 8 out of 10. Like I said, if it had a little more fantasy and a little less psychotic Hitler-type guy, I probably would give it a 4.5 as well, but I'm going to stick at a 4. So then we have one more film. We were scouring the on-demand. I feel like I should have a word like interwebs for on-demand, but for
the cable webs,
the cable webs, we were scouring for 2015 films because a bunch just became available, and I'm gonna watch all of them. But we had to pick one first because Maggie was out there, Black Sea was out there. There's a bunch of stuff and a couple other things from 2014. Selma was out there, but we went with a sci-fi film, Infamy, which is an Australian film, and it's a science fiction film where these guys.
One of the guys is one of the Hemsworth brothers.
Yeah, the oldest and least attractive Hemsworth brother, Luke.
He could be the Hobbit of the brothers.
Luke Hemsworth, and not getting the good side of the DNA pool from the Hemsworth family. It
was all used up on
Chris and Liam, I guess, got him, and Luke, the older brother, is apparently not let out of the house at times because he's in this small-budget Australian film. And they have this thing called slipstreaming, I think that's the method of traveling where
data transfer.
Yeah, it's like a data transfer. They hit this button and they like have a seizure and like become molecules and get transported to a different place.
Basically,
I guess. But anyways, there's this outpost somewhere.
That's how they space travel.
Yeah, that's their space travel, is slipstreaming. And basically what we are presented with in the movie is there's this outer colony type or satellite mining planet outpost or something like that, and there's been some type of craziness that happened, some type of outbreak, some type of disaster, contagion, something happened, and we're basically going to investigate that through both a team that's sent there and then our main character who slipstreamed there when the whole West Coast got destroyed. I'm not spoiling anything yet. Nor could I don't think. I think I could describe every part of this movie and it would not be spoiled because I still don't know what I'm supposed to think about this film. But basically, the whole film is this away party, is what I'm going to call it, showing up on... is the planet Infinity, or is it... I don't know what the outpost was called.
Yeah, I think it's called Infinity.
And they show up there, and everybody there is dead. Brutally dead. Like, blood and guts places. They go into one room, and there's, like, faces and skin and body parts and all kinds of nonsense. And it's completely dark. It's also completely frozen, where they have to have suits on because it's, like, negative 70 degrees. So they're trying to figure out what happened, and
I can't believe you remembered that exact degrees that they said.
Yeah, I'm good like that. And they have 2 mission objectives. Number 1 is to stop the payload, which apparently, if it goes where it's going to just bring this contagion to Earth and
which
everywhere.
Which is what they're mining.
Right, so they got to stop that transport, and they also have to find this guy that they know slipstreamed there to see if he was still alive, and if so, to bring him home. Not going to go too much more into it, but the basic idea for the rest of the film is trying to figure out what caused the outbreak or what caused everybody to die, and to figure out who's infected and who's not amongst the people that are still walking around. and then there's a bunch of twists and turns along the way. And if you're a sci-fi fan, or if you're into like anything that I'm describing, you should watch the film and let me know what you think, because I get with science fiction you got to do like it's the unknown, and you explore a lot of like different themes, and you're trying to pose a bunch of different questions to your audience. I think the problem with this film is they do pose a lot of questions, and there are some potential to investigate some interesting topics and themes and whatnot, but I don't know if they ever really... It's one thing to not answer your questions and kind of leave it up to the audience to determine, but there's got to be some type of semblance of what the actual question is. Like, I'm talking in vague terms, but you can ask a question and not answer it. You can ask a question and kind of leave it as a cliffhanger and let people decide what side of that question they're going to fall on, or how it ends, or they're going to say it's good or bad. But as an audience, you got to know what that question is to be able to have that discussion, to be able to have that debate. And I don't think at times the movie knows what that question is. So I think it's a little bit confusing for an audience member, and it kind of leaves you scratching your head. And maybe some people would love this because there's 1,000 different ways that you could extrapolate what happens in this film, or what it means, or what happens afterwards. But I just think it was lacking a little bit of direction. What did you think of this one?
I think it had a good base, but it did lack direction. I think it was pulling itself in a lot of different ways without giving us enough information on one idea.
Yeah, I did like the main dude, not the Hemsworth troll, but the other guy. They're all Australian, but this other guy, I could see him in some other roles. Like, I could have seen him like kind of like an action hero type guy. So I give him props. I don't know what his name is because I didn't know anybody in this movie, but
it feels like it was akin to the Dread remake.
Yeah, I could see it kind of similar to that. This guy, like, I could see him in something like that. I could see him in RoboCop. I could see him in, different things like that.
Daniel McPherson.
Daniel McPherson, maybe, is his name. I'm not sure. I'm trying to get that for you. But I don't know. I would give this probably 2.5, right in the middle, like a 5 out of 10, because I think it had some potential and it has some interesting things. I just think it lacked some direction. What about you?
I'd give it a 1.5. I wasn't too invested in this movie. I couldn't really get into it.
All right, fair enough. That means that we will be moving on to our last couple of films. I think we only have 2 left before we get to our main attraction, and that would be a rewatch of Thor and Thor: The Dark World. And this is our opportunity to try to finally convince people that they need to revisit these movies, because these movies, I think, are way underrated. I think everyone does all their racking and stacking of all the Marvel films, and they always just want to throw the Thor films at the bottom. Like, oh, Captain America is so great, and the Avengers movies are so great, and Iron Man, except for the people that hate Iron Man 3, is so great. And then they always just like lump Thor and Incredible Hulk at the bottom. I can't speak to Incredible Hulk because I still haven't seen it. But Thor is easily visually the most appealing film in this entire universe. At least up until the point where Guardians of the Galaxy came out. And then I could see those competing. And I know those are the 2 space-centered ones, so maybe that's cheating to say that. But it's not just because they're in space. It's everything that's created, like the buildings, the colors, everything is very cool. And I always kind of fell in line with everybody that I'm like, well, maybe I'm just wrong, and Thor just isn't as good as all these other films. But on rewatch, I liked it even more than I saw it when I saw it the first time.
And the storylines that run through them are bases for a lot of the bigger MCU storylines themselves.
It's like we said a couple weeks ago, like, there is no storyline more important than the Thor storyline in this entire universe. Like, you could take the Incredible Hulk storyline out, and this whole thing could still basically have happened without him. You could, for all intents and purposes, I know everybody loves Captain America, but except for the bonding of the team and maybe leading the team, he's not necessarily essential to this whole thing. Like, everything's involving the Infinity Stones and Thanos, I'm going to say it wrong and somebody's going to yell at me. I'm sorry, I don't know the right way to say it, Thanos. And all those, you know, the connections to Guardians of the Galaxy, the connections to this whole bigger thing that there's always this alien threat. It's like even in Avengers 2 where Iron Man is talking and he's saying, you know, Tony Stark is saying, look, we can fight all these mob bosses and all these ground, you know, the people on Earth all day. It doesn't matter because there's bigger, badder things out in the universe. That is directly connected to the Thor storyline. Like,
they know about these things because Thor came.
Right.
In the first Thor.
And I just think people discount it way too much. And everyone always wants to point to the love story and, oh, it was so cheesy and none of the other Marvel movies had done that and it took away from it. And I almost agreed with them originally, but into the rewatch, I was not bugged by that love story at all. I just really wasn't, because it is what it is. Like,
I just didn't like Natalie Portman in it. I think
I can get that.
I think if they would have put somebody in that had more chemistry with Luke Hemsworth, that
Chris.
wasn't, what did I say?
You said the troll.
The troll, Chris Hemsworth, that wasn't so overshadowed by him, that could, you know, hold their own a little bit more with him,
right,
alongside him.
And I think they could have cast that better too. They always want to cast these like scientists and these doctors and everything like this as these like Hollywood like leading ladies or whatever, and it's not very believable for that standpoint. But I'm not.
Natalie Portman was an idiot though.
But what I'm saying is I'm not necessarily like I could see it being a different person, but I'm not bugged by the fact that he shows up on Earth not knowing anybody and is going to have some type of connection to the people that rescue him or the people that find him. Like, whether Natalie Portman's in there or not, or whether it's just Stellan Skarsgård and Kat Denning, like, that would have been fine too. You know, I get that they had to have some type of connection to somebody that's gonna... There had to be you almost had to have a love connection of some sort, even if it was quick and even if they didn't develop it a lot, because you needed something that actually made Thor care about Earth. Mm-hmm. Like, if it's just, hey, there's these nice people, he goes back, he's never going to think about Earth again. Like, there had to be something on a deeper level that would be pulling him back to have some type of interest in what happens on Earth, or he's not even going to be there for the Avengers. So, I mean, I get the purpose of a love story. Obviously, you can't develop a love story in a superhero film like that probably very easily in 2 hours. Mm-hmm. So I kind of give him somewhat of a pass on that, but I just don't think that was enough to take away from the overall film. And you got the best... I don't care what people say about Ultron... Even the people that, you know, even Kingpin, who's a great Marvel villain here in the TV series, there is still no villain better than Loki in the Marvel Universe, in my opinion. You like Loki or not?
I do like Loki. I think he tends to be a lot of talk, though, sometimes. Yeah. But in the Dark World, I feel like he got his hands dirty a little bit more. He got a little bit more gritty and hands-on, and wanted to kick some ass.
Okay, well, let's get our way into the Dark World, but before we do that, let's close out Thor with kind of what your grade is on Thor overall, and what your final thoughts are on the first Thor.
First Thor, I give
Frost Giants.
Frost Giants get a 3.5.
Okay, I'm going to be at a full-out 4 on the first Thor. I liked it a lot more than the first time I watched it, and I was thinking I was going to find a lot more holes this time around, but honestly, I really enjoyed it. I think the Frost Giants were decent. I think the combination of both the Frost Giants and Loki give you a lot to kind of think about and look at, and I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was visually stunning. So 4 out of 5 for me for the first Thor. What are your thoughts on the Dark World?
I think this is my favorite out of the two. And those dark elves are actually way more hardcore than some of the other villains that we've encountered, even Ultron. Yeah. I feel like they have some really cool tricks up their sleeves. Even like how they speak is really crazy cool and gives you this like whole daunting feeling, because this doom is going to happen just based on how badass their voices sound, and they look really cool, and they meant business. And as far as it being visually striking, I think it beat out the first one as well, because they were in
definitely
space
more contrasting between the darks and the colors in this one, with the dark elves, obviously. I think this one, there's some stuff that I like a lot about it, and there's some stuff that draws me back a little bit. I do like the dark elves, and I do like all the dynamics that we're getting now post-Avengers with Thor and Loki, and how they're dealing with the fact that he no longer can trust Loki. And the whole movie, even as an audience member, you don't know if Loki is just going to continue to be bad, or if he ever is going to be able to turn over a new leaf and return to the good side. And he flirts with that and juggles that back and forth throughout the whole film, and you never quite know what to expect. And obviously, like him and his mom, you never even know when when someone is Loki and when someone's not. Mm-hmm. So I really thought that was a really fun aspect. My only drawback from this one kind of goes back to what you were saying with the first one, is the Natalie Portman storyline in here. Because I didn't necessarily care for the moments where she's in Asgard and dealing with that, and how she's kind of there on the battlefield and kind of a key component to this. I didn't care for that as much. I get that all the planets are lining up and there's portal jumping type things through there. And by the way, I was a guest on In Session Film a week or so ago, and we talked about our best superhero fights. I did not even give this an honorable mention, but the portal fight in this one, originally when I saw this made one of my top scenes of the entire year when I did my top 30 or 40 scenes from the year, and I completely spaced on this. But the portal fight between Thor and I don't know what the dude's name was, but is pretty darn epic.
The
in
main
this.
dark elf.
Yeah,
dude.
is pretty crazy in this, as they're fighting back and forth and the hammers being thrown and going through portals and dimensions and different stuff like this. This is a crazy good fight that's way unique, and this is something that Marvel did a very good job at. And they've done this throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is changing up fights so there's some type of cool new element to it, and
use of their power or whatever.
Yeah, so it's not just a stand by, like a fisticuffs face to face.
Not a Dragon Ball Z fight.
Right. But I don't know, I just didn't like the whole ether being in her, and I think there is some holes throughout Thor and the Avengers as far as when Thor is able to go to Earth and come back to Asgard and back and forth. I know they try to explain it and they try to kind of make it all okay, but it just seems like they might not be super consistent with what he's able to do and what he's not.
The All-Father musters up this dark magic or whatever, and...
Can we say, though, in both films that Heimdall is a badass?
You have a serious
I have a man crush on Idris Elba.
Yeah.
He's a badass in this film. He jumps off of this bridge and takes down a whole ship. He's a man, and he takes down a spaceship.
He's basically a god.
He is.
He can see everything
He can
in
see
the universe.
a butterfly's wings in 3 dimensions away or something, as they said in the movie. That's not the exact line, but I'm thinking it's pretty close. All right. You said you like Thor 2 better than Thor 1, so what would your score be for Thor 2?
4.
All right. I'm going to go the opposite. Originally, I've always said that I like Thor 2 better. On a rewatch, I liked Thor 1 better. So I'm going to go down to a 3.5 for Thor 2 just because of the Natalie Portman aspects. So let us know if you disagree or agree with the views we just gave on the movies that we've been watching. But right now, it's time for our main attraction, which is Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is right beyond the Thunderdome.
All right, it's the third in our series of Mad Max films. We already talked about the original Mad Max, and we already talked about the Road Warrior. Just to review our scores on that a little bit, you gave the original Mad Max a 2, and you gave the Road Warrior a 2.5. I gave the original Mad Max a 2.5 and the Road Warrior a 3, so I was a half point higher than you on both films. And now we make our way to the last installment at the time of the original Mad Max trilogy, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Before we get to this, though, we got to kind of set the stage for those that don't know. For those that are not in the know, this at no time was intended to be another Mad Max film. This was going to be a dystopian, Lord of the Flies type film where a hero is brought in to save this group of lost kids. That's basically what the main premise was, and then the idea got floated that why not use that Mad Max character and have him be the hero, and then it became part of this trilogy. So there's definitely some, like all of the films in this trilogy, there's not necessarily like complete connection between the three chapters. They're very distant from each other. They're separated in time and in what the environment is, which makes them all very much different. We have, kind of on the brink of right when society is starting to fall apart. Then we have like something that seems like it's happening like right in the aftermath of that. And now we have something that seemingly is happening, 5, 6, 7 years after that, possibly, where it's a completely different environment.
We just see that guy from the second movie, that the pilot,
right,
who now has a son who is old enough,
at least 4 or 5, something like that.
He's
6 years
carrying
old.
2 rifles.
Right.
He's got to be at least 7 or 8.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good at least 6 years after the last movie. So they're all separated, which I think is one of the unique things about this trilogy. There's not these like super fluid connections between them. So they're all they all can be standalone films for the most part.
I feel like this one, though, you can definitely tell it could have been on its own.
Right.
You can take this as its own film.
All right, so let's first talk about the title, because the title is Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Which is perfect because they're only actually in the Thunderdome for a couple minutes.
I feel like they should have underlined the beyond. Like, this is beyond Thunderdome. It's not just Thunderdome. It's not Mad Max Thunderdome. It's beyond that. So,
because it's what happens after.
So we find ourselves obviously at the beginning with Max coming across this civilization of Bartertown and being introduced to the character of Auntie, played by none other than Tina Turner.
In a 120-pound metal dress.
120-pound
Eat that, Lady
metal
Gaga.
dress, guys.
And
We're not
meat
joking.
dress.
This is on the DVD extras here. 120-pound dress that she's wearing the whole time.
With shoulder pads like a boss.
And chainmail and all kinds of car parts probably on there somewhere. So he comes across her, and obviously at the beginning we're not sure if she's good, she's bad. She's more kind of introduced as the good person in this kind of dual society where we have above ground and underground.
Can I mention that the whole time I was picturing Nicki Minaj playing Auntie, what's her name?
They don't ever say her last name.
No, they do. It's like Auntie something.
No, they say it on all the other information, like the DVD extras and IMDb trivia and stuff like that, but it's never said in the actual movie.
They just call her Auntie?
They just call her Auntie. So Nicki Minaj in that part.
Oh, yeah, I feel like Nicki Minaj could have done that.
And in a modern day, maybe it could have been. Oh, wait, we're having a modern day Mad Max. And
Where the fuck is Nicki Minaj for this?
we don't need her. Thank God they didn't put her in it. But anyways, so obviously Mel Gibson's character has to figure out what is actually going on in this barter town, because we have Tina Turner, Auntie up in the above ground area kind of ruling things, and then we have Master Blaster in the underground area ruling things.
Who run Bartertown?
Who run Bartertown? Let's talk about how they speak in this film.
Good Lord. It's just like Cloud Atlas.
Yeah, it's
just like Cloud Atlas.
Watch Cloud Atlas and Beyond Thunderdome back to back, and you probably will at some point understand what they're saying. I think they need to put out a dictionary or some type of guide so I can follow along. Like, even with the subtitles on, it's hard to follow at some point what they're saying. And just as an example of that, they say it at least twice in the movie, and I'm going to reach out to those other people that are listening. You fellow movie aficionados or podcasters or cinephiles or geeks or whatever out there, someone please explain to me what they mean when they say, "This is jerking time." Because I think something's been lost over the last 20 years since this was made. I know this is an Australian film, and we're talking about a language that's made up for an Australian film back in the late 70s, early 80s. I think something's been lost in translation here, because it's not just that they say this is jerking time. The people that say that throughout the movie at 2 different times are the kids. And it's very off-putting to hear these 5 and 6 and 8 and 9-year-olds say this is jerking time. What did they mean by that? I don't understand. This is nonsense time. This is joking around time. I was very thrown off by that phrase.
But they know how to say what the fuck.
Yeah, they don't know how to use some of the language, but they do know the phrase "what the fuck."
Kids.
So they didn't say that backwards. "What the fuck" came out exactly like it should have. So that was interesting. What did you say the kids reminded you of? There was one.
Lost
There
Boys?
was not just the Lost Boys, but one specific kid reminded you of.
He looked like the human version of an Ewok. He had like little buck teeth, and he looked exactly.
He probably could have. I think he was transplanted from Endor to the Mad Max setting. Like I think he was on Endor with the Ewoks. He was friends with the Ewoks, or he got separated like in some
He
type
was
of evolutional
raised
chain.
by the Ewoks?
Like if he would have stayed on Endor, he would have became an Ewok. But he got in with these Lost Boys, so he became a human boy. I don't know.
He's like the Pinocchio of Ewoks.
Yeah. And obviously there's a originally, like right in the beginning of the film, when Mel Gibson is figuring out what's what, he has to go underground kind of to figure out undercover to find out what's happening with this whole Master Blaster thing, which ends up with him in a fight in the Thunderdome with Blaster, one half of the team of Master Blaster. And we get a fight in the Thunderdome with ropes and spring-like things and weapons and harnesses.
Chainsaws.
What was your take on the actual Thunderdome battle? Had you ever seen anything like that?
It was freaking lame. Have you ever seen a cage match in wrestling? They could have done something better, like made the Thunderdome taller, or why were they fighting on those, trapeze harnesses?
My thought is, I'm trying to put myself in Mel Gibson's head when that's happening, because it's like it's all built up like this epic, mano-a-mano fight. Like two will enter and one will leave type thing, and then they get in there, and it's all like, there's going to be weapons here and there, and you can choose your own weapons, or you can grab whatever weapons you can get to. It's just going to be an all-out brawl. And then they start to attach you to a harness. And at that point, if I'm Mel Gibson, I'm saying, what is this? Like, I thought we were just going to fight. Like
he was like swinging him around, like
yeah, he was
dirty
like
dancing lifts,
spinning him. It was like it was like one of those, like, I think I saw it on
I
saw it on America's Got Talent a couple years ago. I think the reimagining of this, but
turns out he's fighting the kid with Down syndrome.
Yeah,
so.
Spoiler alert for those that haven't seen this film in 20 years. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, obviously the reveal of him being a Down syndrome kid, but that didn't help because he got killed anyways. So this is the second time we've had. You remember when we called the guys from Road Warrior retarded? Mm-hmm. This guy is the guy that we weren't trying to offend.
Yeah.
Like, this is an actual handicapped individual. Like,
see?
The guy from the second film was an actual retarded person.
Yeah.
So that's the separation there. And then obviously we find out that Tina Turner's character is not as good as we are led to believe at the beginning. And that leads an all-out battle between Tina Turner and Mel Gibson's character, where she banishes him. They do the wheel of death, or whatever you want to call it, the wheel of luck, where you get to spin this wheel, and just about every category was terrible. And he got banished to the gulag, and he got sent out into the desert where the Lost Boys find him and take him. It's very much similar to Peter Pan, I think, at that point. It's like a combination of Lord of the Flies and the Lost Boys from Peter Pan.
He said Wendy's a bitch with a twitchy ass eye.
Oh my goodness, that girl's eye was going crazy. And we talked about the moment where the feral kid in the second movie chucks the boomerang and freaking kills that guy in the forehead, and then takes off the other guy's fingers, and how it was like something we weren't prepared for. All right, so this dumb girl is about to wander into the desert to her impending death.
With a pregnant girl that's about to pop.
Yeah, apparently a pregnant girl that's about to pop. They could say that phrase too.
Whose baby was this?
That was the old. There were some older guys there. There was a couple teenagers in that group, both guys and girls.
Getting a little long.
It was a Blue Lagoon. It was Blue Lagoon. We got so many crossovers in this film. Blue Lagoon, Peter Pan,
Ewoks,
Pinocchio.
Yeah, dude.
Ewoks. Anyway, anyways, this dumb girl is about to just walk into her death, and Mel Gibson decides to take the rifle and shoot a warning shot, to which she doesn't listen. So he takes the rifle and shoots another warning shot, to which they start to throw spears at Mel Gibson's character, and then Mel Gibson walks up to this girl and talk about moments that we weren't prepared for. punches this girl smack in the face.
Thinks about it for a second.
He stops.
Lets her
he
think about it
cocks
for
his
a second.
arm, stops and says, "This is a girl." And then his second thought is, "But I'm in the middle of nowhere and these are all kids and they don't know that I can't hit a girl." And he pops her in the face, then ties her up, puts a stick in her mouth so she can't talk. This shit got real.
Real fast.
It got real fast.
We're gonna stay here. We're gonna be grateful.
I actually had to stop the movie, rewind it, and watch it again because I could not stop laughing at the fact that Mel Gibson just punched this bitch in the face. We also had the Ghostface Killer, as you called him.
Dude, Ghostface Killer Lost Boy.
Yeah, he becomes like post Ghostface later on in the film, but at the beginning he is definitely Ghostface Killer Lost Boy. And
He never says a fucking word, but just does the most badass shit.
Okay, we just got way too vulgar for no reason here. Just kidding. But anyways, they all got crazy names, and it was a lot to take in. You also said that you thought Mel Gibson reminded you of somebody at some point.
He had this whole Assassin's Creed look going on. This leather pants and this, like, flowy skirt thing, and...
Yeah. And we also had some weird-looking guys back in Bartertown. We had the midget guy that was on top of the Down syndrome guy. Like, how did this pair come to power? I would just like to know the origin story of Beyond
Master
Thunderdome.
Blaster?
First of all, we were breaking barriers way before anything. We have an African American female that took over of the above ground part of Bartertown, and then we got a Down syndrome giant with a midget on his shoulder that took control of the underground. Send your hate mail to me. She's not a part of this. But anyways, this is a weird society in this post-apocalyptic Mad Max world, and then the people that are surrounding these guys. We got the one guy that has the chick from The Grudge above his shoulder with the hair like hitting him in the face all the time. Like, he was crazy. He reminded me of both someone from the second movie and someone from the first. He reminded me of the one half of the homosexual couple from the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
The balder one that doesn't die with the boomerang to his face. And then he also reminds me of the guy in the truck at the beginning of the first Mad Max film that's just going insane and yelling things. Like, the Knight Rider or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, he reminds me of both those guys. This dude was crazy, but apparently was super strong because there's a scene where he's doing a post-apocalyptic version of a arm wrestle, but they're pulling on chains, and the guy he's pulling against looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was like Mr. Olympian, and this guy looks like nobody.
He's like a flabby little asshole.
Yeah, like, he does not look like he's that strong, and he's kicking this dude's ass in this feat of strength or whatever they're doing. Then there's also the big fat guy with like the monocle or whatever. He doesn't really have a monocle, but that's what he reminds me of. I don't think he had a monocle. That was like one of her main henchmen that initially takes Mad Max to her. And then there's like the creepy MC that has all the famous lines about the Thunderdome and it's dying time and stuff like that. That dude was creepy. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of as creepy as the costumes were in the second one are the actual characters in this one, and you get to hear them talk and you get to interact with them. So
you see that the craziness of their environment has really taken root in their psyches, and there's no order and no sanity.
And like you said, we do have also the connection between the pilot from the second movie, so there's some continuity there, and his son.
Which they don't touch on where the mom is, or if the mom was even that chick that he left with from the second movie, or...
Remember, babies and moms in this franchise can disappear even throughout a single movie, and we don't need to know where they're at.
I'm sure a few people out there wish their baby mamas would definitely disappear.
Yeah. And we didn't talk about the land of the pigs down there, too, that the underground land was fueled with pigs.
Pig killer?
And that the methane from the pigs is what fueled this whole place and whatnot. But anyways.
I thought that was cows.
It's pigs also. It's all manure, basically. Pig shit. Cow shit. No, it works the same.
I'm not a
so let's break this down then as we wrap this whole trilogy up and we get ready for Mad Max Fury Road. What place does Beyond Thunderdome hold? Is it better or worse than the other two you've seen so far?
I like it better definitely. I feel like there was things going on that I could follow, even though there was a lot going on that I really had no idea what was going on. Or, I mean, he was in Bartertown. Now he's made his way to this other little Lord of the Flies colony going on, and now
The
he's
land
back
of the
on
cracked earth, I believe, is what they call it.
Okay, so he's out in the middle of the desert.
Land of the cracked earth.
He's in the desert.
Yeah, he wanders his way there, and then he finds his way back
To
to
Bartertown.
Bartertown.
He breaks out
It's
of Bartertown.
the only city, I think, in the world, so it's going to light up the sky at some point.
At least in Australia.
Yeah.
In Sydney. I thought the scene of Sydney was really cool.
Oh, yeah, at the end when they're flying over, that's a cool scene. But what didn't you understand about him getting back?
What I didn't understand is where all these freaking kids came from.
Well, they came from that...
And where's all the adults?
Well, they had the plane crash that was there. So, at one point, that plane... They kind of talk about it when they're going through the weird language of the telling story thing, kind of how they make it there. I don't want to...
We do the tales.
Yeah, I don't want to try to quote it and get it wrong, but, I mean, there's a reason why they're there and in connection with the plane crash and everything like that, and it's just kind of a place where they developed and stayed because that was the only place they knew, and they were afraid of going across the desert too far until Mel Gibson's character gets there. So, I mean, I don't think there's too much that you need to know about that, besides that they've just been surviving there for at least a few years. I don't know what the youngest child is. It seems like they're about 4, maybe. Like the youngest kid in that group is about 4. So you can kind of sense that they've been there for 2, 3, 4 years at the most.
Yeah, but
kind of
then
living on
the
their
parents go, okay, you guys stay here. We'll be back. Chill. Nobody left a couple parents in charge?
No, I don't think there was any. I think there was very limited number of adults in the original grouping of that. I think it was mainly kids and very few adults. So the few adults had died off trying to help them or in the crash or something like that. I don't know. I'd have to rewatch it very carefully listening to those tales. But so you like it better than both of them? What score would you give it?
I'd give it a 3.
Okay, I was at 2.5 for the first one, 3 for this one, or for the second one. I would definitely be up to at least a 3.5 on this one. I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. This is definitely my favorite one. I know a lot of people like the Road Warrior the best, but even as a kid, I liked to be on Thunderdome better, and I like it better here too. And we didn't even talk about the music, but obviously you've had a chance to hear the music as you've listened along here, and goodness, that's a great song. I don't need another hero.
But I need to know the way home.
I do want to know why that song was chosen, because it doesn't seem to make any sense. It's like the kids are saying, I don't need another hero, but then they do need Mad Max because he saves their lives.
And they don't need to know the way home, but then they do.
They do need to know the way home. So that song doesn't really quite fit, but it sounds great, so we have that. All right, so that is it for our main attraction. We're looking forward to going seeing Mad Max Fury Road, as is everybody, as this is coming out. It's out in the theaters, so go see it, and we'll be talking about it next week. We can't get enough Mad Max talk, so one more time next week. So looking ahead to DVDs that are coming out this next week, we have Blu-ray releases of Hot Tub Time Machine 2. We have Girlhood, Cymbeline, the big one, American Sniper, for everybody that wants to see that, is out on Blu-ray. And we have Poltergeist 2 and 3 in preparation for the next installment in that franchise. And like I said, theater releases, Mad Max Fury Road is the big one. We also alluded to Pitch Perfect 2 being something that's coming out to theaters. There's actually quite a few other films that are coming out either on straight to on demand or in the theater. So in a movie called Area 51, Every Secret Thing, which is that creepy film with Dakota Fanning and that other girl who killed one of their friends or something, and then they're still crazy.
The Slender Man shit?
Yeah, it's got Elizabeth Banks, Diane Lane, Dakota Fanning, and another creepy little girl. That film is coming out. Good Kill, which is from Gattaca director Andrew Niccol, who reunites with Ethan Hawke for a drama about the human costs of advanced war technology. A movie called I'll See You in My Dreams. A film called The Surface, starring Sean Astin. A film called The Connection, and I'll give you the description here because it's kind of interesting. Directed and co-written by Cedric Jimenez, The Connection was entirely shot on 35mm and is the European flip side to William Friedkin's The French Connection. A stylish 70s period crime thriller inspired by true events, it tells the story of real-life Marseille magistrate Pierre Michel and his relentless crusade to dismantle the most notorious drug smuggling operation in history, the French Connection. We have the Michael Fassbender joint Slow West hitting some limited theaters. A sci-fi film.
I want to see that.
Yeah, I do too. A sci-fi film called Time Lapse. A film called Absolution, and the only thing you need to know about that one is it's starring Steven Seagal. In the Name of My Daughter. Echoes of War. And Shake the Dust and Where Hope Grows. Where Hope Grows is a kind of an interesting tale about a baseball player who has panic attacks at the plate and kind of what happens with that and what happens with his career and his life following that. So that's what's being released in theater or on demand this week that you can look for. As far as a question for next week, I don't know if I've given you a chance. Have I given you a chance yet to ask one of our questions?
Let's continue with the Mad Max and let us know what your favorite Mad Max out of the three would be.
So don't count Fury Road if you've already seen it, but which of the first three is your favorite? How rank the Mad Max films? So Fury for Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome, and the original Mad Max. What are the best and the worst in that trilogy? So that's it for now. Thanks as always for joining us here on Weekend at the Movies. You can contact us in the following ways. Call the voicemail line 502-526-5821. Visit the forums and episode post at geekcastradio.com. The best way to interact with us is go to the actual website, geekcastradio.com, find the episode post, and comment there, and we will definitely interact with you. You can also stay in touch with what we do by visiting the Facebook page by searching Geekcast Radio Network or following the Twitter handle at Geekcast Radio. My Twitter is at Optimus Solo. Your Twitter is...
Hard Candy Mandy Eyes No Wise.
And that is it for us. We will see you next weekend when we talk about Mad Max Fury Road. So see you next week.
Out of the ruins, out from the wreckage, can't make the same mistake this time. We are the children, the last generation. We are the ones they left behind. And I wonder when we are ever gonna change. Living under the fear till nothing else remains. We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is life beyond the Thunderdome. Looking for something we can rely on. There's got to be something better out there. Love and compassion. That day is coming. All else are castles built in the air. And I wonder when we are ever gonna change. Living under the fear till nothing else remains. All the children say we don't
know if that White Knight. I don't know what they say.
I don't know what that was.